that means MCQ. So the MCQ paper you all have to choose the appropriate answer from the 4 questions, 4 answers, right? So the second paper you all have to face two parts, right? Part A and Part B. Part A, you have it is a structured essay paper, and you have to write the answer on the paper itself. So in the first, the 4 questions, each question you will get 15 marks. Then altogether, 15 into 4, you will get 60 marks. And in the part B, you have 5 questions, but you have to answer only 3 questions. You can choose 3 questions, and you can it will give 60 marks. So out of 60, you have to score, right? So within this 60 plus 60, it will decide the second paper, the score of 120, right? Okay. Then okay, let's see what kind of questions that might ask in the part A structured essay paper. So in the first question, it is most probably it is from the biosphere lesson. Okay, so it is in the grade 11 paper, grade 11 syllabus. So within the first question, these are the questions. These are the units you in the question paper that might ask. So most probably it may be organization level of biosphere. Then mechanisms involved in maintaining the equilibrium of ecosystems, sustainable development and environmental management, environmental pollution, waste management. So these are basically from the biosphere lesson. So you have to you have to answer the first question in biosphere lesson. The second question, it's also from biology part, and it is mostly from the classification of organisms or systems in human body, these lessons. And the second, the big question, it is a practical. You have to answer a practical question. Mostly it might be photosynthesis, the characteristics of organisms, so it differs. It is probably it is a practical question, right? Then the third question, it is a chemistry question, and fourth question, it is a physics question, right? And the part B, fifth question, it is a biology question, and most probably the questions might be from the lessons of systems of human body, inheritance and reproduction. And the sixth question, it is a chemistry question. Seventh question, it's a physics question. And eighth question, it is a combining of biology and physics. Mostly the biology question may be classification of organisms, right? So this is what I want to emphasize you, what is the exam paper, right? Because you have to understand well what kind of a paper that you are going to face within the exams, right? So you all have a very good time to prepare and make a plan how you can score a higher marks, right? So this is all about that. And I will share, let's move to our revision class, right? Revision lesson. So I start from the first chapter, right? First unit from the grade 10. So we will cover grade 10 syllabus first, and while the lesson I will cover the questions, the past paper questions that the past papers questions, right? So you all can get an idea on what kind of questions that has asked within the exam, right? Okay. So chemical basis of life, right? So you all know on this earth, we can divide the things into two parts basically. They are living things and non-living things, right? So if you observe your surroundings, your environment, you can identify very easily there are living things as well as non-living things. So how you can differentiate between these living and non-living? What kind of characteristics that helps to identify whether this is a living thing or this is a non-living thing? Right? What kind of characteristics that help to observe or to understand that this is a living thing or this is a non-living thing, right? So basically, you know how we can differentiate the living thing and non-living thing. If you observe, so living thing, it has a life, right? Non-living thing means it doesn't have a life. So if you can observe rock, you can observe that it doesn't have a life. And what are the other characteristics? You already know this in the previous classes. You already studied about how living things and unliving things can be differentiated, right? So the living things, they are respirate, right? They can produce energy. They are respirating, and they are growing, right? They are growing. Then they can reproduce. They are doing reproduction. They can produce a generation, right? So, and what are the other characteristics? They are motile, right? They can move from one place to another, right? Even you can make an argument that this in the non-living things, water, it's also from moving from one place to another. Yeah, it's right. But in the non-living things also there are some characteristics which performed by living things, but altogether we can in the living things there are 7 characteristics we can identify, we can differentiate from non-living things, like respiration. They have a in their organism, in their body structure, their structure is made out from what? What is the basic unit of all the living things? It's cell, right? So animals, you know, the three things, what are the 3 parts of the living thing? They are animals, they are plants, microorganisms, right? So animals it might be mammals, right? Like humans, we are mammals. Then birds, reptiles, amphibians, fishes, right? So all of them are including to the animal, right? Then plants, right? Plants are also, it's a living thing, right? So their body structure is made out of what? From plant cells, right? So there are microorganisms. Even microorganisms they have a life. So within their cell, even there are single cells microorganisms like amoeba, protozoa, paramecium, euglena, right? So in this one cell, single cell microorganisms, their life is carried out by what? From their cell, right? So the සෛලය තමයි ජීවි දේහයක තියෙන කුඩාතම යුනිට් එක. අපිට non living thing එකක් අජීවී දේහයකින් ජීවි දේහයක් වෙන් කරගන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රධානතම දේ තමයි එයාලගේ තියෙන සෛලය කියන යුනිට් එක. ඒ වගේම තව characteristics perform කරන ඒ සෛලය ඇතුලේ විවිධ ජීවියෙක්ගේ දේහය ජීවි පවත්වාගෙන යන්න various processes වෙනවා. So the reproduction, respiration, growth, metabolism, motion. So all these things we can differentiate from living things and non-living things. So you know already these things, right? So then in this earth, on this earth, right, there are elements. Okay, so you know every object on this earth, it is made out of from what is the unit, what is the basic structure of all the things created on this world? It is atom, right? So atom is the basic structure of any kind of object. So these atoms, then by combining these atoms, right? From these atoms, these elements are created, right? So we can divide the elements into two categories, right? There may be natural elements. If you take a periodic table, right? So these are the elements present in our earth. So main elements දැනට we have discovered on this earth, right? So within this periodic table, there are natural elements as well as there are artificial or the man-made elements. Okay, so nearly there are more than 120 elements present in this periodic table. So these are the elements up to now we have discovered by the various scientists, right? So these elements we can divide them natural and artificial. So how many natural elements are there on this earth? It is 92, right? We do have 92 elements present on this earth. Right? We have discovered up to now it is 92 elements. So within these 92 elements, only 25 elements are contributed to create the what? Create the life. Right? So we divide the things in our earth into two, living things and non-living things, right? So the elements on this earth, we divide them as natural and artificial. There are 92 natural elements are present on this earth. Out of 92, only 25 is responsible to make the living body, right? Our human body, other animals' body, plant body, microorganism body. So all this, within all this body structure, they are created by 25 chemical elements. Understood? So within these 25 elements, there may be macro elements and micro. What does it mean by macro? Macro means large amount of elements. That means these elements are essentially needed by the living being. That means if these elements, if any elements not present in right, that means all the elements of these macro elements, they should be present within a living body, right? So they are essentially needed in order to carry the life. Okay, then the micro elements, micro means small amount. So these are only responsible in small percentage of in the living body, right? These macro elements are present in higher amount. The macro elements කියන ඒවා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ජීවි දේහයක තියෙන්න ඕන elements. ඒවා ජීවි දේහය පවත්වාගෙන යන්න අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අඩංගු වෙන elements. එතකොට micro elements වෙන ශුද්ධ elements කියන්නේ micro elements කියන්නේ ඒවා ජීවි දේහයක තියෙන්නේ අංශු මාත්‍ර ලෙස කියන්නේ small percentage එකකින් තමයි තියෙන්නේ. So if they are not essentially to carry our life, but if they are not present, right? If they are, let's say, they present in a living body in a, they are not presenting the percentage is not enough, right? Let's say they are present in a small amount, then they may be, we say that there might be deficiencies can happen in the living body, right? Then micro elements අඩු වුණොත් micro elements නැති වුණොත් හරි අඩු වුණොත් හරි ඒ ජීවි දේහයක ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඌනතා කියන්නේ deficiencies, right? So we will talk, we will discuss these elements in later on within our lesson, right? So in the you have to make sure these numbers, because they might ask sometimes in your MCQ paper, right? So if there is any question, how many elements are contribute to create living body? So how many elements? It is 25 elements, right? Out of 92, only 25 elements are contributed to make our to create the living body, right? Our human body, animals body, plants body, microorganisms body, right? So only 25 elements are contributed, right? Then, so we discuss now there are macro elements, right? Within that 25 elements, right? We divide them macro and micro. So what are the macro elements? They are essentially required by the living being. Okay, so there are 4 elements among this 25, right? Among these 25, there are 4 elements among the macro elements which are essential to continue the life of living being. So what are them? So what are these 4 elements? They are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So all of our living beings, right? All the living beings, if it is a living being, then these 4 elements are essentially or definitely they are present in their body structure. So what are these macro elements? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So this is also another point which might ask in your exam, right? So you have to keep remember. Sometimes you have to, in your structured essay paper, this question might be asked, right? So what are the 4 elements which are essential to continue the life of living beings? They are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So normally if you write this in your exams, if you are writing the answer as these symbols, it's also okay. But if you are writing in your structure paper, it is good if you write the name itself: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, not the symbols, right? If you are write the symbols, it's okay, the full marks will be given, but it is better if you can write this name, right? Okay. So then we are moving to compound. So what are the compounds? So now we know there are, we discussed there are elements, right? So by collecting together these elements, they are formed, it is formed compounds, right? It is formed compounds. So there are basically two main compounds we can find in the environment. What are them? Organic compounds and inorganic compounds. Organic compounds and inorganic compounds. So organic compounds means what? Organic. Organic means the compounds which contain which element? Carbon, right? So organic means compounds which contain carbon. Then inorganic means simply that the compounds which do not contain carbon. Okay, so you have to keep remember. If any question asking that what are define what are the organic compounds, right? Then the compounds which contain carbon, and inorganic means compounds which do not contain carbon. Then there is a question. Carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, carbonates, bicarbonates. I have included them in inorganic, but they have carbon in its structure. So is it a mistake, or is there some reason for that? I have included into this inorganic. Right? Inorganic means that compounds which do not contain carbon. But in here, you can observe that in their structure, they have carbon. So what do you think that? What is the reason? If they have, even though they have carbon in its structure, but it is inorganic. What do you think? Okay, the reason is even though the carbon present in this formula, this carbon is not responsible for creating the properties of this structure, right? It is, even though this carbon atom is there, but it is not responsible for having the properties of this carbon dioxide, element, that compound. Did you understand? Even though this carbon atom is there in its structure, it doesn't contribute any characteristics to create the properties of that compound. So that is why even though it has a carbon atom present in their formula, but we categorize them as the inorganic compound, right? I think you get that point. Right, moving into the next slide. So now we discuss that organic compounds, right? So what are the biomolecules then? So biomolecules are made out of this organic compound. Right now we discuss there are organic and inorganic. So these biomolecules are what? These organic compounds are what? They are present in the living being's body structure. So biomolecules are what? The molecules which are made out of the living organism's body. So there are 4 biomolecules. They are organic, right? So you have to keep remember these biomolecules, they are organic. They are organic means they do have a carbon in its structure, and the carbon is responsible for having the properties of this biomolecule, right? So what are these organic these biomolecules? There are 4 biomolecules. This is throughout this lesson we are discussing this biomolecules, right? So there are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. So this is the question that might ask definitely in your exams. What are the 4 biomolecules? Carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. So in this lesson, you have to have a good knowledge on the elemental composition, right? Elemental composition of this biomolecule. That means what are the elements which are in these biomolecules? What are the elements they have formed? In which elements they have formed? Right? You have to have the knowledge of their elemental composition. From which elements carbohydrates have made? From which elements lipids are made? Which elements proteins are made? And from which elements nucleic acids are made? Then you have to keep remember these biomolecules, what are the places they can be found, and some examples and their significances and the experiment. So throughout this lesson, if you have a good understand the knowledge on and about these things, right? The elemental composition, their places we can find them, and the examples, significances, and experiments. So these are the 5 points you have to keep remember under this lesson, right? So we are going to discuss one by one of this biomolecule, right? Okay. So first biomolecule is carbohydrate. So carbohydrate, you know, it is present in various foods, right? So these carbohydrates, from which elements, right? Now you know carbohydrate is a biomolecule. So it is made out of elements. And which elements? Definitely it has a carbon, right? Because it is an organic compound. So we discussed these biomolecules are organic compounds. Then it is structure, it has carbon atom. Then hydrogen and oxygen. So CHO. So all the carbohydrates, they are made from these atoms, carbohydrate elements, carbon element, hydrogen and oxygen. Right? So you have to keep remember CHO. And the special thing is the ratio of this hydrogen to oxygen. The ratio between hydrogen and oxygen is 2 to 1. Okay, it is a special feature of this carbohydrate formula. If there are 2 hydrogen, then oxygen is only 1. If there are 4 hydrogen, then the oxygen is 2. Right? That the ratio always it is 2 to 1. And you have to remember what is the common formula. If any question is there, write the common formula for carbohydrate. Then you have to write this carbon, and it is present x number of carbon. That means any number of carbon atoms can present in this carbohydrate molecule. Right? And the next is H2O. H2O means not the water molecule, right? H, hydrogen, the hydrogen atom, right? Not the water molecule, right? Hydrogen, it should be that it is 2, and oxygen. Then this hydrogen and oxygen also, it can be present in any amount, but it is not this X and Y, it is not the same number, right? So you should keep remember to write this formula CxH2O out of the brackets Y. Okay, so always this H into O ratio is 2 to 1. Right? And later on we are discussing about these carbohydrates, then these formulas, then you can get an idea about that. Right? And the next thing is according to this structure, right? Now this structure is what? This all these carbohydrates, they are formed by using this common formula. And according to this formula, right, you can observe that they might present any number of carbon, any number of this H and O. So according to these numbers, these structures, right, they are formed as three types. You have to remember carbohydrate as three types. What are those? What are these three types? They are monosaccharides. Mono means what? Mono means one, right? So this carbohydrate, only one carbohydrate is there, right? Mono means one one carbohydrate, right? Disaccharides means di means what? Two. That means two carbohydrates are there. Two by joining two monosaccharides, this disaccharide is formed, right? We are in the later on we are going to discuss all these things. And poly means what? Poly means many number of carbohydrates, many, right? Now in the mono means in the structure only one carbohydrate is there. In di means there are two. Poly means many number of, right? So you have to remember within this carbohydrate there are elements, right? Which elements they are formed. So they are CHO, right? So the H into O ratio, it is always 2 to 1. And the formula is CXH2OY. Then what are the three types? They are monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides, right? Okay. Monosaccharides, right? This is the chemical formula, right? Now, in here you learn that the formula should be CXH2OY. Now, according to that, how many? Now here, carbon is the X. Here you can see X, right? X is 6. X equals 6, right? Then Y equals, right? So now here you can see H2O, CH12O6, H2O into 6, right? That means now you have to keep remember carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Then in here we discussed that hydrogen into oxygen, what is the ratio? 2 to 1. You can see here hydrogen it is 12 and oxygen it is 6. So the ratio is 2 to 1. Is it correct? It is correct, right? 2 to 1. So here CX means 6 and Y is also 6. Then after you solve this formula according to this, then you can get the expansion of this formula as C6H12O6. So the in the monosaccharides, the smallest, the monosaccharide is it is the smallest structure of this carbohydrate. Kudama carbohydrate ගත්තාම තියෙන කුඩාම ආකාරය වෙන්නේ monosaccharides කියන එක. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒකේ තියෙන එක carbohydrate අණුවක්, ඒ කියන්නේ එක carbohydrate එකක් විතරයි තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට ඒක monosaccharide. So ඒකේ තියෙන atoms ගාන carbon වල අවම වශයෙන් එතකොට 6ක් present වෙන්න ඕන. එතකොට the formula is C6H12O6. So what are the three types of monosaccharides? There are glucose, right? Glucose, fructose, galactose. You have to keep remember this point, right? There are three types of monosaccharides: glucose, fructose, galactose. This is the simplest form. You know glucose, right? You can simply dissolve it in the water, right? Because it has a very simple structure. And the fructose is what? It is present in the ripened fruits. Okay, so it is what are the characteristics of this monosaccharides? When I discussing with you, then you can see they are sweet, right? Glucose. When you can imagine the glucose, how sweet they are. Fructose, the ripening fruits. The sweet, their sweetness, right? The galactose, it is present in dairy products. Okay, okay, right. Then the next is disaccharides. Disaccharides means what? By joining two carbohydrates. Di means two, no? In here, only one structure, one carbohydrate is there. Okay, then it in the disaccharide it is formed by combining two monosaccharides. Okay, so it is now you know it is we have to you don't need to keep remember this formula, right? So it is di. You have to remember di means it is formed by combining two monosaccharides, right? There are three: maltose, sucrose, and lactose. Okay, and then the polysaccharide. Polysaccharide means many number of saccharide molecules are there. They are starch, cellulose, and glycogen. So this is a very important diagram, right? Figure. You have to remember this all these examples for monosaccharides and disaccharides and polysaccharides, right? Okay, moving to the next slide. It is monosaccharide. Mono mean what? It is one carbohydrate is there. So it is the structural unit of carbohydrate. Okay, so the monosaccharide is what? It is structural unit of carbohydrate and known as simple sugar. Right? You can understand from the glucose. It is simple. It is very easily dissolved in the water. So known as simple sugars, and they are crystal shape. The shape is crystal and generally sweet, and they are water soluble. So examples are glucose, fructose, and galactose. Okay, right. So in your textbook, this table is there, right? So you have to remember from where we can find out glucose. From where we can find out glucose can be found out in ripened fruits. Ripened fruits. In ripened fruits, this glucose are present. And bee honey, right? In bee honey also present, glucose are present. So the things you have to remember when every starchy food, let's say rice, any kind of starchy food, bread, right? So if they hydrolyze, then what is the simple structure of all these starchy foods? It is glucose. That's because glucose is a monosaccharide. So it has only one carbohydrate, one monosaccharide structure, one molecule is there. So for an example, monosaccharide is glucose. So if every starchy food is digested, right? Means hydrolyzed, it is formed this this is the simplest structure of all this starchy food. It is glucose, right? So from where you can find out glucose? You can from where this glucose is produced actually. You know, the photosynthesis, a main food production process happen in the plants. So in which form they are produced? This their food as glucose, right? Produced during photosynthesis. And the next, you know, cellular respiration, right? You know, all the living beings are made out from what? Created from what? Cells, right? The animals are made out from animal cells. The plants are made out of plant cells. So what should be needed them to continue its life? ජීවය පවත්වාගෙන යන්න මොනවද ඕන කරන්නේ? Energy එක ඕන කරනවා, right? So from how they produce this energy? By glucose, right? When they burn this glucose, they can get the energy, right? So this energy is used for every and each process in our body to continue its life. අපේ ජීවිතයේ ජීවය පවත්වාගෙන යන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන ශක්තිය ලබා දෙන්නේ කවුද? මේ කොහොමද? මේ ග්ලූකෝස් දහනය කිරීමෙන් ලැබෙන එනර්ජි එකෙන් තමයි අපේ ජීවිතයේ තියෙන සෑම ක්‍රියාවලියක්ම පවත්වාගෙන යන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන ශක්තිය දෙන්නේ. So in the cellular respiration, this glucose is essential for the living beings, right? The next type of monosaccharide is what? Fructose, right? So this fructose is also found out ripened fruits, bee honey, pumpkin, carrot. So these are known as fruit sugar. That means in fruits, right? So in the food production is when during the photosynthesis they produce food. That means produce glucose. So this glucose actually when these glucose are stored in the fruits, right? When they store in these fruits, they are called as fructose, right? In the fruits, this glucose is present as fructose, right? Is actually they are made out in the photosynthesis. They are produced as glucose, but when they are storing the fruits, they are known as fructose, right? So these are known as fruit sugar. So fructose is formed from where? During ripening of fruits, right? This within the fruits, when they are ripening, this fructose is formed. Okay, and it is a sweetest sugar. Example, if you take the sugar, it is this fructose, right? It's the sweetest sugar, right? Then the next is galactose, right? Galactose are found from where? Dairy products. Okay, so the lactose, we will discuss this lactose in the next saccharide. It is in the disaccharide, right? So when the lactose is hydrolyzed, we can get the galactose molecule, right? In here, starchy foods are, when starchy food hydrolyzed, we can get glucose molecule. Then the lactose hydrolyzed, you can get the galactose. So they do not they are not sweet taste, right? So both of these galactose, fructose, they are sweet, but this galactose is not sweet, right? So if any question is asked there, choose the monosaccharide which is not sweet. So you can choose. So there are answers: glucose, fructose, sucrose, right? So and galactose. So what is the answer? It is galactose, because they do not have very sweet taste, right? Okay, I think you may have get the idea on this monosaccharide, right? So these things you have already learned. So this is a quick revision, right? The next is di. Di means two. There are two molecules within their structure. So by joining two monosaccharides, these disaccharides are formed. And what is the thing actually happen in this formation of disaccharides? When a disaccharide is formed, a water molecule is released during the process. So water means what? What is the formula? H2O. Okay. So H2O, a molecule of H2O is reduced from when combining these two monosaccharides, right? So within their structure, H2O is H2O molecule is not present, right? So these disaccharides are also sweet taste, and they are also water soluble crystals. In the monosaccharides also, they are sweet, they are crystals, and they are water soluble. And in disaccharides also, like same, they are sweet, they are water soluble. And the special thing is, when joining to monosaccharides, a water molecule is released during this process. Okay. So what are the three examples for these disaccharides? They are maltose, sucrose, and lactose, right? So what are the, in the first we discussed monosaccharides. What are these examples? What are the monosaccharides examples? They are glucose, fructose, and galactose. Now these disaccharides are formed from those monosaccharides that which we have previously learned, right? Maltose. These disaccharides are maltose, sucrose, and lactose, right? Maltose, sucrose, and lactose. Okay. So maltose, how? By joining which molecules? By joining monosaccharides, no? Right? So which monosaccharides are responsible to create maltose? It is glucose. Okay, we discussed at the first as the first example for monosaccharides, glucose. So how this maltose disaccharide is formed? By combining two glucoses. That means these are monosaccharides, right? And within the process, and you can understand here, by joining two glucoses, it forms maltose molecule and release water molecule, right? So from where we can find out this maltose, it is in the germinating of seeds, right? When seeds are germinated, okay, these maltose we can found, right? You have to remember, if any question asks where we can find out maltose. So maltose can be found out from where? From germinating seeds, right? The next one, it is sugar, right? The normally known sugar, sucrose, the sugar we are consuming sugar. So these sugars are white and brown sugar, and sugar cane and beet, and it presents some fruits also. This sucrose is present, and phloem sap increase also this sucrose present, right? Normally the in our home, the sugars we are using in our day-to-day life, right? These are white and brown sugar, sugar cane and beet, some fruit, and phloem sap increase. Okay, so from which molecule this sucrose are formed? That is the next question. So this sucrose also should be made from what? Monosaccharides, no? So you learn three types of monosaccharides: glucose, fructose, and galactose. So this sucrose is formed by what? Glucose and fructose, right? So from by combining glucose plus fructose, it will form sucrose. You know, when two monosaccharides are combining to form a disaccharide, it will release a water molecule, right? In here, this water means that water molecule is present in. You can write this in a word. This word formula is correct, right? If it's asked write a formula, this word formula is correct in your textbook. They have the chemical formula also. You don't need to worry to remember that chemical formula, right? Even this formula is enough, right? Then the third disaccharide is what? Lactose. Okay. So from where we can find out this lactose? It is in dairy product, right? We can find this disaccharide, this lactose in dairy product. So from what are the monosaccharides responsible to form this lactose disaccharide? It is, there are three types of monosaccharides: glucose, fructose, and galactose. Then the glucose. So all these three disaccharides, glucose, are involved to make this disaccharide. And the next, the other monosaccharide is galactose. Right? From the name itself, you can recognize what is the monosaccharide. Lactose, galactose. Right? Lactose, it is fructose, galactose. So by combining glucose plus galactose, then it will form lactose, and it will release as the same way a water molecule. And you have to remember, this is very special point. This is the only sugar absent in plants. Okay, so this maltose, sucrose, and the other things we discussed in the previously, they present in plant, right? But this lactose, right? Even the galactose also, right? These sugars, they are absent in plants. The only sugar absent in plant, okay? And not sweet as sucrose, right? They are not sweet as sucrose and other types of monosaccharides. And this, right? So we know that these lactose, from where they can find out in dairy products now. So let's say cow's milk. So in the cow's milk, it presents 4 to 6%, right? And human milk, it presents 6 to 7%. Okay, you should need to keep a very rough idea on what are the disaccharides and from where we can find out. The location is important, okay? And this formula you can keep remember. If you have the idea of the maltose, you can remember it is made out of this glucose, and when joining these two monosaccharides, it will release water. Then by understanding this, you can write this formula. Okay, right. I think you have get the idea of this disaccharides. Okay, then let's move to polysaccharides, our third types of carbohydrates. Okay, we already discussed monosaccharide and disaccharides, right? So poly means what? Many. Poly means many, number. There are more than 2. It may be 3, 4, more, right? Maybe many number of carbohydrate molecules, monosaccharides molecules are present. So they are formed by how? Polymerizing. That means by combining large number of monosaccharides. By combining large number of monosaccharides, these polysaccharides are formed. Monosaccharide, this polysaccharide, when they are hydrolysis means, now when when forming polysaccharides, or in the previous we discussed disaccharides. When a disaccharide is forming in here, you understand water molecule is released. We can reverse this, right? We can reverse this formula. When the water molecule is given, we call this as hydrolysis. Did you get that point? Right? Now in here, we when forming a disaccharide, forming polysaccharide, it's a water molecule. You can give this water back, then it reverse relevant monosaccharide, right? Okay, there was some connection issue. I will share the screen again. Okay. So we were discussing here, right, the polysaccharides. So they are insoluble in normal water. Normal water, right? But if we can increase the temperature, they are soluble, right? You know, in the starch, right? Starch, they are not soluble in the normal water, right? When you make any, let's say any food item, right? Then when we dissolve this starch, this flour, then be dissolving the normal water. That is why we are using some hot water for making some kind of, they are not crystals, right? In the previous two molecules, we saw that they are crystals, monosaccharides and disaccharides, but these are not crystals. They are in powder form, right? They are powder. So what are the examples? Cellulose, starch, and glycogen. Okay. Right. So in this table is also important, right? From where we can find out cellulose. So cellulose, it is the plant cell. It has a cell wall, and from which what is the component of this cell wall? From which component this cell wall is formed? It is cellulose, right? So you have to keep remember, cellulose is the component which is made out of this plant cell. Cell wall of the plant cells, and they are present in fibers. Okay, so the thing is actually even the structural component. These are structural component of plant cell wall, but the thing is they doesn't digest in the human digestive system, right? We don't have a mechanism to digest cellulose, right, within our digestive system. But you know, there are various animals like cow, goat, right? They can digest this cellulose, right? So they have a special kind of digestive system, right? Okay. The next type of polysaccharide is starch, right? So starch is present where? Grain, yam, various yam types, jack, breadfruit, right? You know, starch is present in rice also, right? So the rice means present the starch. So they from the thing is, the special point is, it is the storage component in plant. Okay, now you know in the photosynthesis, what is the type of carbohydrate produced in the photosynthesis? What is the carbohydrate produced in the photosynthesis? It is glucose, right? But even the glucose is produced within the photosynthesis. They are not the form, they are not the component which is stored in plants. That means they are not stored in plants as glucose, right? ඒ කියන්නේ glucose තමයි ප්‍රභා සංශ්ලේෂණය කරන්නේ මොන විදිහටද starch විදියට, right? So this is a special point you have to remember in your exams, even in the MCQs. This point is special. This is important. It is a storage component in plant, right? And then stored in animal liver and muscles. Okay, so this is the type of carbohydrate stored in animal body. Right now, this starch is the component, carbohydrate component. Okay, sorry, there was a connection issue. Right, so I was discussing that the glycogen is the one responsible for storing component in animal body, right? Okay, so these are the things we have to discuss it in the lesson. What are the things we discussed? We discussed there are 3 types of carbohydrates: monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides, right? So we discussed the characteristics of each carbohydrates. Usage of these carbohydrates. These carbohydrates responsible for cellular respiration, right? So when the glucose burns, it will release, it will produce energy. So for in the cell, right? So cell in mitochondria. And the next, it is important as a storage compound. We discussed that it is the photosynthesis, even though it is produced glucose, but okay. Right. So in the animals, it is the glycogen. Glycogen is the responsible carbohydrate as the storage compound, right? And as a structural component in plant cell wall, we discussed that the cellulose, right? Cellulose is present. Cellulose is the responsible component for every plant cell wall, right? So we can say that structural component, it is a significant one. Another significant of carbohydrates as a structure going to discuss later on this chapter. Nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. So this DNA structure, it is made out, one component is there as the carbohydrates, right? So it is, we will discuss in the later on. So you have to remember one as a constituent of nucleic acid, this carbohydrate is also important, right? As a structural, then the next one is storage compound. Third one is structural component in plant cell wall, and the fourth one is constituent of nucleic acid. Right. Okay, this is an MCQ. Right. Normally, this question, most of the questions use, but sometimes they are asking for the structured essay also. So in 2019. This question is was there. Which polysaccharide containing plant cells helps prevent constipation? Which polysaccharide contains in plant cells helps prevent constipation? Is it starch, or is it glycogen, or is it cellulose, or is it lactose? What do you think? It should be cellulose, right? Even though human body in the digestive system, we don't process to digest the cellulose. You know, cellulose is what? A structural component present in plant cells. In the human body, we do not have a structure, we do not have a process to digest this cell wall, this cellulose contained cell wall. But the thing is, it prevents constipation, you know. The constipation is a disorder which occurs in the human digestive system, which cannot pass the stool very smoothly, right? So because this unable to pass the stool, it can cause this disorder called constipation. But if when somebody takes take much leafy vegetables to their diet, then this cellulose can prevent this constipation, because it can allow us to pass the stool in a very good manner. So the answer for this question is cellulose. The next question from 2018, right? Consider the following equation, right? You can see here, it is what? You have C6H12OY in the first part of this lesson. I H12O6 is the chemical formula for monosaccharides, right? Or any type of monosaccharides. Then it says that 2 monosaccharides. It says that in here, what does it mean? It has 2 monosaccharides, and 2 monosaccharides form what? You know, by joining 2 monosaccharides, it will form a disaccharide, right? So you can understand this in the chemical formula itself has this disaccharide, 2 monosaccharides. In here, carbon is 12. In here, it has 12. But the thing is, when joining 2 monosaccharides and forming a disaccharide, what happened? It releases a water molecule, right? Now you can see here, it releases water molecule. In water molecules, how many H are present? H atoms, 2 H atoms are present, right? Then in here, you can see, even though if we multiply this into 2, but here it is, it is 2 hydrogen atoms are not present in this formula because 2 hydrogen atoms, it is releases as water in the water molecule, and also 1 oxygen is not present in this structure because 1 is present in the water molecule, right? කියන්නේ දැන් monosaccharide දෙකකින් disaccharide අණුවක් හැදෙද්දී H2O එකක් release වෙනවා. එතකොට මේ structure එකේ disaccharide අණුවේ H2O කියලා hydrogen atom දෙකක සහ oxygen select the option that gives appropriate should be definitely monosaccharides now. So and right, but the next one, it should be disaccharide. Okay, in which answer it contains the disaccharide? It is first one, right? Because cellulose, it contains polysaccharide. Starch, cellulose means a polysaccharide. Starch means also a polysaccharide. Glycogen is also a polysaccharide. But the maltose is only the disaccharide structure. Disaccharide one, right? So the answer should be first one. Okay, right. The next question. The substances acting as the main components providing energy for the functioning of the human body are. Actually, we haven't discussed these lipids, proteins, these things. Actually, we discussed only the carbohydrate, right? But you know, the answer should be, in the answer, it should be definitely contain carbohydrate. Then A, first and first two answer shouldn't be the answer, right? Because providing energy for the function of the human body. Then the answer definitely should be carbohydrate. Still we didn't discuss these lipids and proteins, but lipid is the other component which can for the human body. And because we do not have much time to continue this, the next part, we have to learn the identification tests for carbohydrates. So I will stop the class from here, and because this should be it will take some time, and we don't have much time. So I think you have what are the things we discussed from the beginning, right? We discussed there are living things and non-living things are present in the environment, and they are present. There are natural elements and artificial elements present in the on this the human in the different elements are present to natural elements are 25 are living beings body. Microelements, right? Macroelements are there. Every 4 elements are included in their structure. And inorganic compounds are there. Right? The compounds, these biomolecules are organic. Like all these, it's carbon and 4 biomolecules. These 4. Okay, these biomolecules are present in every structure of a living being. Then we discussed one by one this carbohydrate, right? There are this carbohydrate. There are 3 types: monosaccharides, disaccharides. And we discussed about this monosaccharides. What are the characteristics? Right? What are which from where we can find out these monosaccharides, then disaccharides, right? Polysaccharides. Okay, finally the significant. Okay, so today we have to discuss tests for carbon. So from here, I'm stop the class. So I think you have get some knowledge from this revision, right? So make sure to read in your textbook, read these things again, and try to answer the questions past paper, right? Then it will not be much difficult to get the high score for this subject, right? Okay, so thank you very much for joining.